Good evening, everyone. The species I chose to do my presentation on was the sea otter. I had a hard time choosing, so I had my family help me, and we just chose one out of the hat and happened to choose sea otter. Um, they're also called Endra lutris. They're known as a keystone species. Sea otters can be found along the coast of the Pacific Ocean in North America and Asia. The sea otter is an aquatic member of the weasel family. Northern sea otters live in the waters off of south coastal Alaska, British Columbia, and Washington state, while the southern sea otters live off the coast of California. As you can see here, their scientific classification. There's three subspecies of them. There's the northern sea otter, just a regular sea otter, and the southern sea otter. Found out some interesting facts while I was working on this project. As I mentioned in the beginning, they're a keystone species, which means they help maintain biodiversity. Their diets include invertebrates such as urchins, crabs, and abalone. And those species feed on kelp and algae. So when there's an absence of otters, these grazing organisms will deplete the environment of these essential marine producers, and as a result, the ecosystem becomes less biodiverse and consequently less healthy. So they help control the overpopulation of the sea floor by eating the sea urchins, which would take over, leaving the ocean floor exposed to light and little food for other marine animals. And indirectly, they help reduce the level of atmospheric carbon dioxide by maintaining the kelp and maintaining kelp and algae. Mother otters actually wrap their babies in kelp to anchor them so they don't float away or sink, because when the babies are born, they are born with such thick fur that they can't swim, and so they would sink. They are very social animals, and they like to hang out together. When you see a group of them, they're called rafts. Their fur is 2 layers thick, and it has 1 million hairs per square inch. And typical humans only have 100,000 hairs on our entire head. When they go underwater, they have nostrils and ears that close, and sea otters have webbed feet and water repellent fur to keep them dry and warm. Some unique attributes of the sea otter. They You often see them holding hands, and that's so they can keep their paws warm. After eating, they wash themselves, then they clean their coat. They have to take care of their coats because they help them remain waterproof against the cold. They have thick underfur that traps air to form an insulating layer against chilly waters. Sometimes they float in forests of kelp, in which they entangle themselves to provide anchorage in swirling seas. They have a baggy patch of skin under their forelimb, which they use for storage, which they can keep extra food, And they also can store a rock, which they can use to crack open their prey. Unlike other marine mammals, they have no blubber. They consume 25 to 30% of their body weight every day in order to survive. I mentioned earlier that they eat sea urchins, abalone, crabs, clams, mussels, sea stars, fat innkeeper worms. There's not that much that eats them. Their greatest predators are the great white shark and killer whales and humans. They reproduce sexually, and only happens when female are in uterus, and males will breed with all the females in his territory. As I mentioned before, there's multiple species of sea otters. Northern sea otters have a population as of 2014 of 54,771, and southern sea otters as of 2019 was estimated as 2,962. The northern sea otters population has declined by more than 50% since the mid-1980s. Thousands of the sea otters from South Central Alaska died in the Exxon Valdez oil spill. It was estimated that 1,000 to 5,500 sea otters died in the first few months after the spill. In some of those heavily impacted areas of that spill, their mortality approached 90%. The southern sea otters are considered endangered. At one point, there were only 50 until the Marine Mammal Protection Act was enacted in 1972. The population has now somewhat stabilized, staying around 3,000 since 2016. Some things that are endangering these animals are the availability of their prey, entanglement in fishing gear, oil spills, contaminants in the sea, disease, and shark. Some other things that I found cool were they actually use tools. They can use rocks and glass bottles to open up their food. They sometimes come ashore, but that's only usually during storms to rest and to sleep. Thank you, everyone. This was my presentation on sea otters. These are the sources that I used for this presentation.